spot. Okay.
Yeah, well, you're live. So, good evening, and welcome to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. I'm your host, Miss V, or Victoria, or Vicky, or whatever you want to call me. I'll answer to it. I promise I've been called worse. Tonight we have Colleen Norris. Colleen is a researcher out of Ohio. Colleen has had her first experience when she was 14. She's been researching for over 30 years. The first time I interviewed Colleen, let me tell you, we had the best interview in the world, but we did not do it live. It was pre recorded, and I lost the audio because I am a bad Vicky. And that was just terrible. But she's really patient. She's been a really good friend, and she knows that I'm not perfect, and she's agreed to come back on the show. Yeah, actually, yesterday we were scheduled to go live. I got home late, didn't have to, feed up the animals, and it was just a mess. And once again, being the friend she is to me, she put it off for 24 hours, and I just love her for it. Colleen also, I want to say drag races, but she races on the oval track, and I'm sure she'll go in a little bit of that when she starts doing her bio. But Colleen has had experiences with
Yeah.
Bigfoot and Dogman, and I actually love her. Colleen, where do you want to take it?
Um. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name's Colleen Norris. I have been investigating these things for well over 30 years. Mostly, I learned on my own. I did things on my own, and then I caught up with groups that I joined later, and I learned a lot with them, and I've experienced a lot with them. I currently am with a group called SOSPI, Southeastern Ohio Society for Bigfoot Investigation. I used to research with a gentleman by the name of Tim Stover, which a lot of folks have heard about because he's been on several television shows like, America's Mysteries and things of that nature. And he's been on a episode of Finding Bigfoot with Cliff Barackman and Bobo and everybody, Matt Moneymaker. Um, let's see. I can go all the way back to when I was young and had my first experience or encounter, but we might do that in a little bit. The big thing that we're here to talk about is Dogman. Ohio is rife with them. We have several Bigfoots or grassmen that you put it, supposedly over 1,000 in our state, but I don't have a number for Dogmen. I know their numbers are growing. I'm the owner of a video that some of you may have seen years ago of something digging in a cemetery in Akron, Ohio. Now, I know it's a 1 minute, 11-second video. It is not all that good. I did not take it. The ones that did were friends of my daughter's. And I'll back up a little bit. They were on their dinner break from a local restaurant that they worked at that was near the cemetery. And so passing through or passing time, they went for a drive through the cemetery. Approximately 8:30, I believe. I don't know. I was on a Friday. I don't know the date, and I'm not real sure of the year. Um, but they were driving around. It is a park-like setting. It's a very well-known cemetery in Northeast Ohio, so it has thousands of people interred. Um, so it's very well kept up, very well manicured. It's a beautiful place. So they're driving around and they go past the mausoleum, which again, that mausoleum in the picture is a 500-foot long building, above ground mausoleum. And surrounding it are all headstones from cremations that did not enter the mausoleum. They're just all around. Well, they came across this thing digging. And I guess they watched it for a while. And it wasn't until almost to the end they got the idea to let's videotape it. So they took a picture of it with their cell phone. And those are, I think, that 1 minute and 11 seconds is one of the most amazing videos I've seen. It really clearly shows the dog man. So, anyhow, they had to get back to work. So, in the video, it says, she's really getting down there, and oh, that's just weird. Well, they had to turn around and go back to work, which was about a half a mile up the street. Uh, they are not researchers of any kind. They just were typically, I think they were in, might have been in college, I think, because I think my daughter was. So anyway, uh, they sent that video to my daughter and they said, hey, we know Colleen is an investigator and maybe she can find something about this. And so they did. They sent it to me late at night. I got bing, and I looked and I saw it, and I said, I know where that is. That's Green Lawn Cemetery. I grew up there, near there, so this area is no big deal to me. So the very next morning, I got up, I got ready, grabbed my stuff, got me a cup of coffee, was out the door at dark 30. It wasn't even sunlight yet. So it's about an 11-minute drive to from where I live in Kent to the cemetery. And I got there at the crack of dawn and got my stuff together. And I walked around and I looked at that hole and looked for other evidence and things. Well, as the sunlight started coming up, I got to see a lot more. And I had a tape measure and I got to measure the hole, and it was 21 inches deep and it was 18 inches wide. And if you get to see the picture of the hole and the dirt, you will see that the dirt was thrown in an arc. It wasn't thrown in a straight line. So it's almost as if what did it had to have been rotating from its hips while it dug with its hands. And it sat on its knees. I have still pictures I sent to Victoria. She'll try to send them. They actually show the creature and blown up, and it is on its knees. You can see it rotating from the hips, and you can see the way its arms work. So
And the ears were dominant.
you have to keep in mind this, whatever did this. Oh yeah, and the hands and the fingers. But this thing had no tools. There were people in the beginning when it went viral a few years ago that thought they saw a shovel and they thought they saw a pick and all. And it's like, nope, no, folks, there's no tools being used. In fact, when you dig a hole with a shovel or a spade or what have you, what do you get behind the shovel when you lever the dirt out? You get compacted dirt, and you can tell it's flat, it's smooth. There was none of that. Nothing. There was absolutely no signs of tools. What there was soft, already tilled up dirt that was in the hole from the fingers. You can see the two knee prints in the picture where it sat. Well, let me think. I took the pictures of the hole and I looked around for more evidence. And this was on Saturday morning, very early. And then I left and I got to thinking and wanted to learn a little bit more about it. So I went back into the cemetery. The cemetery is open. It's not like a closed place. It's like I said, it's like a park. So people can go in. And I went back and looked at it again. And now the cemetery itself was closed. Business was closed until Monday morning. Well, Monday morning, I thought, well, I'm going to go back just to see what happens. So I went back. By that time, the groundkeeping staff had already filled the hole no later than 9 o'clock Monday morning. It was filled. I came around later on, and you'll see a picture of it with flowers planted on it. And I spoke to the gentleman that did that. And basically what I was told was they were told not to talk about it and to act like it never happened because they could not figure out for the life of them what it was. It wasn't on video cameras or anything. That the staff, I guess we'll call it the staff, we'll call it the supervisory staff, told the other staff to fill it in and make it look normal because where it was, there was no graves, no full-size caskets were in the ground. They were only cremated remains. But so what they did was they made it look like a fresh burial. And
Wow.
it was not. Uh, had a talk later on because I spoke with the groundskeepers, and they said they weren't allowed to talk about it. They weren't this, they weren't that. But as I was leaving the cemetery, I did have a small conversation with one of the groundkeepers, and he was kind of shook up about it. And he's the one that told me, nope, they told us to fill it, make it look normal, and do not talk about it, act like it never happened. He said they do not know. They don't have a clue what this was. I said, I have the videos of it. Is this what you want to see? And I showed him the video, and he trembled because, you know, it's a cemetery. They're going to deal with groundhogs, gophers, raccoons, things like that. But nothing gets in there and starts digging holes like it was.
It was not the
And
size
just
of
so
a
people know,
groundhog.
no, it was pretty good size. I don't think it was our size, but it was pretty good size. And just so folks know, there was no grave there. So I know there's people thinking it was trying to dig up a fresh grave. No, it wasn't. There was nothing buried there where it was. The stone that you see or the headstone that you see in the picture belonged to a certain gentleman that's familiar with the Barberton area, and he's interred there. But the space next to him was waiting for his spouse, and she was still alive. So there was nothing buried there. What that thing was doing, I don't know. I have my own theories. Um, I had the conclusion that it was trying to bury a dead infant. Now, how I know that, I don't. But it makes sense because it was early spring. It was in April. I do know for a fact why they became agitated and they were in that area. If anyone's listening, they know about Barberton, Ohio, and Norton. Well, they know there was a fire. There was a huge brush fire along major interstate I-76 and 224. What I think happened was that fire reached very, very close to where they were living in a swampy area. That fire probably agitated them. And I think they moved. They left the area and they followed Wolf Creek and they followed Pigeon Creek. About 6 miles. For us to drive, it's 5 minutes. But for them, it's probably going to take a week or two because they have to look for food and shelter and everything else along the way. This area is full of shallow waterways and rivers like the Tuscaroras River, the Cuyahoga River, and several creeks. Lots of ponds, lots of lakes, lots of reservoirs. Well, what else? You know, I mean, it all hinges on the water. So I think what they did was they went under the bridge for Wolf Creek and they started following it. Well, it wasn't 2 weeks later. Ohio Department of Transportation began a widening project on the expressway. So the first thing they do is shut off the bridge that goes over top of Wolf Creek. You can all see this on a map. If you Google it even, you can see it for yourself. You can see exactly what I'm talking about. And I think they wanted to come back, but they couldn't. They were kind of blocked off by construction equipment, tarps, other, scaffolding and everything else, because that's the first part of the project they did was the bridge. So they kept going and they kept headed north and following, which eventually took us to the area of Summit Road, Barber Road, Route 261, and maybe half a mile or so from that cemetery, which is Norton Township behind it. It might be Akron in the front, but behind it is Norton Township. When I went there and looked, I saw the fencing for the cemetery, and it really wasn't much of a fence. It's more like a wrought iron fence that's about 1 foot, 2 foot at the most off the ground, and almost anyone could step over it. But I don't think it was built to keep things, from coming in. I think it was more decorative. But anyway, before that incident happened, I was in touch with several people from the area. Like I said, I've been investigating these for a long time. I had my cards out. talked to people, was getting phone calls. I got several calls from people that live in the area that don't know one another, but they all described the very same thing. Little short black haired people in their backyard stealing apples. Little short, hairy people, or whatever they were, ducking under bridges, things like that. I got a phone call by a gentleman that was really upset, and he was telling me about seeing a creature chewing on or eating on a roadkill deer on Route 261, approximately 2.5 miles from where they were, maybe another mile from the cemetery. But he was on his way to work, and he said he saw something munching on a deer, and he didn't know what it was, and he pulled over and he looked at it, and he said, I saw the most scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. He said it looked like a small werewolf. He's reiterated like 3 times that it did not have paws. He says, I'm telling you, it had hands. It had its arms wrapped around the torso of the deer. He said the hands were holding on to the neck as it was munching. He said it had fingers. It did not have paws. So you put 2 and 2 together. Now you're looking at something that matches what the cemetery video looks like. And we know that a set of paws aren't going to dig through dirt. There's just no way. You must have at least fingers to do it. So there were some other things that happened in the neighborhood, and right around the same time frame, about I'd say a week or two after that, there was other sightings, and there was a lot of animals came up missing. So we saw a lot of signs for missing cats, missing dogs. And then we
Oh,
heard
not
about some
cat.
farm animals, sheep, goats, chickens that were either missing or killed. And no one knew anything about that. No one could pinpoint it. But it happened just shortly after the whole thing happened. And right about that time is when the cemetery video was taken. So that makes me think that one very well could have passed or lost a child because they didn't have enough food. I could be wrong, and maybe it wasn't burying an infant, but I got a feeling it was. Uh, let's see. There were a few more things that happened. I interviewed another gentleman that lived on the hillside going towards the cemetery off 261, which through his backyard, through the woods, would have been maybe 3/4 of a mile hike to the back of the cemetery. His daughter wouldn't sleep at night because she kept seeing a monkey man looking at her through her window while she's trying to sleep. And she said this plain and simple. She said, I saw a monkey man. I saw a monkey man. Well, okay. Again, let's put 2 and 2 together. You saw a monkey man. We don't have a clue what that was. Uh, but it wasn't long after they moved to Pennsylvania. Um, hmm. I got to think. There's
So
been
all of this
a lot of
happened
other things
within.
happen.
So all of this happened
What's that?
within. What? So all of this happened within what? 10
Within a
miles of
few
each
weeks.
other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. About a 10-12 mile radius, things were going on. There's also what happened with dogs. In Norton had a private dog kennel, and there was something that came through the woods, got into the dog kennel, and I hate to say this, killed 8 German Shepherds. And when I say killed, I've got photographs of them. They were destroyed. They were they were killed in a violent fashion. And I
They
will
were in
not
pieces,
share
weren't
those
they?
photographs. What's that?
They were
What was
in
that, Jen?
pieces.
Yeah, some of them were. Some of them had puncture wounds in their necks that indicative of 5 large fingernails. The ligature x-rays showed the hands wrapped around the throats, showed the broken, busted vertebrae, um,
Hmm.
showed the dog's hides torn off. It was brutal, and I will not show the pictures of it because I
And
love
they were
dogs.
not. They were not killed for food. That was a thrill kill.
Well, we don't know that. Was it possible a thrill kill, or did they start killing one or two for food, but they wound up killing 8? But the gentleman that owned the kennel heard the commotion, flipped the outside light on because it was right next to his house, and told us that he saw one of the most god awful things he's ever seen. He said it looked like a werewolf, and it scrambled over top of the fence and ran back into the woods, and that's all he saw. And it wasn't long until he sold out and he moved away. Whether he's still doing jogs, I don't know, but he does not live there anymore. I don't know if I would either. That's 8 German Shepherds, probably valued at $1,000 or so a piece.
So, yeah, sounds like they were
Let's
the
see. It wasn't
bloodline.
that long.
Sounds like they were the
Oh
overseas
yeah,
bloodline type.
and it
So
wasn't.
let me ask you this: did you get
Mm-hmm.
when you have seen your dog man or you get descriptions coming in? I always say they're the one I saw was not big like the thumbnails you see on YouTube. They're kind of what I saw was
Mm-hmm.
kind of toned down, but it had the biceps of a person. Uh,
Yeah,
What would be your basic description be?
kind of like what you say. Kind of like an animal's torso, animalistic legs. Well, they still have an animal upper body, but it's wider and it's larger because they do seem to have stronger arms, stronger hands. Like I said, we estimated the arms to be with the hands 40 inches long. Now, maybe they were a little smaller, I don't know. But it had to be fairly long to dig that hole at 21 inches deep while it was sitting on its knees. It did not lay
Wow.
on its belly, it sat on its knees the whole time. You can share all those photographs that I sent you if you'd like to.
Actually, I'm going to send them to you on that. Now, did you start out investigating Dogman, or is
Uh,
that something that just kind of fell in your lap?
no, uh, no, I started looking into something called a Kenmore Grass Man, or just the Hairy Man, or Bigfoots. I grew up in an area south of Akron, south of the Portage Lakes. There was a reservoir across from me, and it was called the Nemasilla Reservoir. And we lived right across the street from it in an older house. When my parents moved there in 71 or 72, we had elderly neighbors. And a lot of the neighbors, they get to know us, and they're saying, watch out for the hairy man. Just watch out for the hairy man when you go in the backyard and when you go across the street. Because I didn't know what they were talking about. My folks didn't know what they were talking about. But there's so many other people said that. But Bigfoot really wasn't a well-known word back in the 70s. People probably like me, they didn't know that they were even around here. And then I started hearing about this thing called a Kenmore Grassman. And you can look that up too. There's lots of stories about them. And it was a term coined by rubber plant workers, rubber or tire workers, because of Goodyear, Firestone, BF Goodrich, all in that very same area. And the workers would look out the windows on their brakes and they would see these dark, smaller, hairy type things walking through the sawgrass and the high grass by the canals, the Ohio River, Ohio Erie Canal, and the Ohio Canal, and Tuscarawas River. Well, it just coined uh, grassman, and I think that term's been around for quite a bit.
So, when did Dogman come in the picture?
Dogman came in when I read some stuff happening in Defiance, Ohio, and a few other places like Hocking Hills, Ohio, and I got curious about them. I kind of got to the point in my life where, all right, there's squatches, there's grassmen, there's whatever. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to run around scared and frightened because they exist. I'll get into those in a bit. But when I learned a little bit more about the Dogmen, I didn't like it. I'm not okay living in a world with a dogman or whatever it is this creature is. I'm not even sure where the term dogman came from because they say it
I
looks
don't
like
like that
one.
term.
But
I don't like that term.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know the lineage of them. I don't think they're wolf. I don't think they might be somewhat of a canine. They could be a little bit of a bear mixed with something else, but I don't know. So I just know they're not supposed to be here, and I think they're not good, and people don't want to get near them. There's been stories, everyone's heard them, about the killings in Kentucky and in the North Carolina and other places, maybe even Georgia. There's that retired school teacher that got torn up by one. There was that teenage kid in Kentucky that got drug up a hill by one. People can say it was all they want, that it was a cougar, a mountain lion, or whatever, but I don't see it. I just don't see it, and I don't see it as a pack of wild dogs, or coyotes, or anything. It had to have been what it is. And then there was the incident a few years back at the land between the lakes. I won't go there. There's no way. But if it's true, that's bad news. We have to do something about that. Um, like I said, I don't have all the answers. I've just
I
looked
think
into these cryptids for a long time.
I think the biggest critics come from the Bigfoot community. I
Well,
think
that could be too. I think a lot of folks feel like a dog man is stepping on Bigfoot's toes and it's
yeah,
pushing them out of the picture. No, I don't think so. I was just at Salt Fork the other day to that Ohio Bigfoot conference. Met a lot of people. Now, I mean, I've been going there for a long time, but talked to Jeffrey Meldrum, talked to Cliff Barackman, several others, and BF is alive and well. All right. I mean, they're down there in the Salt Fork area, Guernsey County, Coshocton County. They're there. Don't know how many there are, um, but there's no denying them. I myself have pictures that I took at 2:30 in the morning on a night vision camera, and I've got pictures of one behind a tree line, looking at me from a clearing where you can barely see his face. And then the next picture I took, bang, there's his face. He stepped about 10 foot closer to me and stuck his face closer to the opening of the trees. And I got that picture. And it clearly shows his face, his hairline, his eyes, his eye sockets, his brows. You can see it, and it definitely has a Native American look to it. I'll try to let you folks see it, and I then might have sent it to Victoria, but I'll double check. Then I have
um
pictures of something called a watcher, and his job, I feel, is to watch over the children and the young. And he hides in the bushes, and when you see pictures of him, you see his head, maybe his shoulders, because he's hidden. But they don't have a concept of a camera, I don't think. They know that they can see us, but they don't know that we can see them. So they assume with their big eyes and their excellent vision that they're the only ones that can see us at nighttime. But they don't know much about cameras and night vision.
so Dirt Road Bigfoot wants to know what happened in Defiance. I hope I'm saying that right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There was several dogman sightings and that in the Defiance area. There's a filmmaker, a young guy by the name of uh, oh, gotta think. Anywho, he makes a thing called Small Town Monsters. Um, oh my God, Seth Breedlove. Seth Breedlove, and he does a film series called Small Town Monsters. Well, he's done a couple on Dogman now. He's got a new movie out that everyone should see, and it's called American Werewolf. and it talks about the Defiance, Ohio area and the bad things that happened up there. In Defiance, there were lots of killings of animals. There were sightings. There's one where a college student went missing after a run, or she went for a run, and she never came back. And later on, they found her clothing. It was torn to shreds, bloody, everything else, but no body. They don't know anything about what happened to her. And I think you can still look that up too. There are reports of them in Hocking Hills, in Hocking County, and Vinton County. I have another friend by the name of Richard McCandlish who researches them down in that area, and he's got a ton of evidence that he collects from down there. He's got photographs that I'm not going to show them. They're just unreal looking. Maybe sometimes you will see them. You may have seen clips of them on that when he put something on YouTube like last year and he showed pictures of them. Yeah, that's how you'll see them. But I didn't take them, and so I'm not going to show them and take credit for them.
Okay, so let's
and I
move on
haven't
to your.
seen one.
Wasn't there a body on the freeway that you guys heard about? Or
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not long after the incidents that happened in Norton, I'd say a month later, if anyone knows of I-77 coming from Cleveland all the way down south, it goes through Akron, it goes through Norton, and it goes past Vernon Odom Boulevard, which if you drove it, you're at the cemetery in less than 5 minutes. What happened? They have sound walls, like lots of places do. And there's trees behind it, and there's the loamy soil and things like that, and the waterways and all that. But Ohio had some tree blights not too long ago. So some trees fell. Well, one tree fell and landed against the sound wall. So its branches and leaves and everything were a nuisance and a hindrance. So they came and they cut all those down. But they left the tree laying against the sound wall for several years. I saw it. I went past it all the time. So what supposedly happens is one of these things met the end of the road and climbed up that tree. Climbed up the tree, and its weight fell, and it dropped on the highway in front of a semi. And the way I understand it was they sent an ambulance crew. I don't know the name of them, and I don't know who the drivers was, but I know about them. And they were sent to pick this thing up. The police, the highway patrol, ODOT, and some others were involved. Hundreds of people saw this dead thing laying on the side of the road. But because all the law enforcement was there, they just kept driving. They didn't think much of it. The news got a hold of it out of Cleveland, Channel 8 News. And I remember very well seeing this black bear with an ear tag laying dead on a 2-lane blacktop. All right. And I know, because I don't believe everything, I have to know something about it. I know that I-77 is a concrete 4-lane highway, 6-lane highway, actually. I know that it doesn't have, the painted lines are not yellow like they were in the picture. They are white. Plus, it also has a zipper strip on the right side, so it wakes up the drivers. That's where this thing was at. But on the picture that they put on the news, it was laying on a 2-lane blacktop, half on and half off, right on top of the yellow line. And there was no zipper strip. But the public bought it. They don't even question it. Like I said, when I saw it, I'm like, that's not it. That there's no way. That's a 2-lane blacktop. We're talking a super slab. So we didn't hear too much more about that. We did hear that they took it to an undisclosed location, probably somewhere near the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. The drivers of the ambulance, they were pretty much told, and they were scared not to talk. I don't know where the information came from, but he literally said he approached some people and he said that what I saw was not a bear. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen, because by now it was already torn up by the truck. But he said it looked like something like a werewolf, and they had us transport it in the ambulance, but he would not say where, and he gave no names.
Wow.
And then things started to die down. But it wasn't until maybe early spring that a Akron City Councilwoman saw what she thought was a German Shepherd walking on 2 legs in front of the sound walls off 77, because they're long. I mean, they go from like the next intersection to the next intersection, so maybe they're a mile long. And this thing was walking on the traffic side, and it would have had no way of getting back on the other side. And that was her words to me, that it looked like a big dog, and it's walking on 2 legs and swinging its other arms. She said it did not walk on 4 legs. So again, I put 2 and
Wow.
2 together. That's pretty much what I come up with.
Wow. That's
The
incredible.
after th- yeah, after things kind of died down, I believe they followed Wolf Creek, Pigeon Creek, across Route 261, through an area that is well known for growing produce. When I say loamy soil, it's from the Ice Age, and the soil is almost black and it's full of nutrients. So it's well known for growing corn and other crops. And this follows up probably 4 miles to another swampy area, because there are several swamps, bogs, and other waterways. And it goes into a reservoir complex known as Barberton City Reservoir. And it's acres and acres and acres of protected land. You do not wish to get caught on that reservoir property, because again, it's water for a municipality. You don't want that. It's very well guarded. It is very well marked and fenced in. But we got a feeling that that is where they went, because that's where the waters for those 2 creeks flow into. But we think that's where they went. And then farther north of the Barberton Reservoir, we run into Route 21. And what do we got on the other side of Route 21, or both sides of Route 21? Swamps, big swamps, where they don't have businesses, they don't have houses, they don't know, nothing goes there. But I think these things found that area and considered that home now, because they haven't been back to where they were. And
Did
to
they,
back up just a few weeks or months, uh, I forgot to mention that right during the fire, there was a racetrack, and it was known as Barberton Speedway, and it was very close to 76 224. I was there during its opening night. It was closed for 2.5 years, so it was very quiet. But then under new ownership, they were ready. They announced everything is ready. We're ready to go. What we do? We got the race car out of the garage. We got everything ready, and we were there. And that was the day that they were putting out the fire. They had the fire trucks were putting out the little brush fires, and that most of it was put out already. But it was like all of a sudden this area got woken up again. They're very loud. So I think that really agitated them. But it also scared them
wow.
away.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be roadkill on a racetrack either. So, but if you think about it, a
No,
lot of the
no.
habitat Yeah, a lot of the habitat has been developed and stuff, and it'd be nice to say, well, that's a swamp, nothing to never be built on it. But
Hmm.
these days, they'll build on anything. I mean,
Well, they will to an extent, but if the property or the land isn't worth all that much commercially, they really won't, because these swamp layer areas have been around since I was little, and I'm
mhm.
60. Uh, I mean, since I was born, basically, and they've never changed. They've never built anything on them. They built around them, but the swamp areas are still there.
Yeah,
And
no
there's been quite
habitat.
a bit of sightings and things around. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
habitat
Remember,
is
Ohio is
everything.
a lot of wetlands. Hmm. A lot of wetlands, but we
Well, I'll
just
tell
take them
you
for
why I say
granted.
that.
People drive past. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you why I say that. In North Carolina, when we had a hurricane, I places where there were 6, 8 feet of water standing, there's houses there now on slabs, and I'm just like, first hurricane that comes through, I cannot believe they let them build on it. I mean, it's terrible. So,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so
Close
let's
to the
get into
coast.
your other hot spot, Bigfoot.
Okay,
There we go.
okay. Uh, like I said, I grew up next to this other reservoir known as Nemesilla Reservoir. And if you look on the map, you're going to start seeing the Portage Lakes, Nemesilla Reservoir, and over, it moves west or northwesterly. It starts picking up lots of other lakes, lots of other rivers, creeks, and it finds its way to Norton, and it finds its way um, to the reservoir, and so on. You see it. You can see it plain as day. But like I said, people that go to work every day or drive that road every day, they're used to it, and they don't notice anything. They don't see anything, or they don't think about anything else. But living in the area, I was used to it. I saw it all over the place. Um, Many years ago, I'm going to say maybe I was 13 or 14. My first episode, my first encounter, my first interaction was I was in my bedroom. My parents' house wasn't finished yet. My bedroom was kind of like a basement. It was in on the lower floor, so the house was built up against a hillside. So I got the privilege of having these real short windows that led up to the eaves or the eaves of the roof, and it was fine. But I remember one winter day, and it was a fresh snow, and the moon was out. It was like a harvest moon almost, but it was cold, and it was so bright. The moonlight was coming through my bedroom window, all the windows actually, but it lit up my bedroom completely. It was like, wow. So I'm in bed and I'm awake and I'm watching this. And then all of a sudden, one of my windows goes black. And I thought, and then at the time it went black, I'm hearing heavy breathing outside. And I could hear something walking on the ground next to my window. The next few seconds, I heard the little bit of a crinkle, like aluminum. And what I found out the next day was it was fingers smashing down on the gutters because they were so low to the ground. Well, as I laid there petrified, uh, it would move to the left or the right. And I would see these little slivers of light come in through the side of my window, and then it would go black. And then the next one, another sliver of light would come in, and then it would go black. Now, it did this for a little while, and I'm getting scared. I'm covered up. I'm not even showing my face, and I'm hearing this. And then all of a sudden, I heard this other, and it could hear it turn around, and you heard it run towards the backyard
Wow.
where the woods were. And you could hear this until it went out of distance. But I don't know what it was. I got a feeling I know what it was, but I know it wasn't my neighbors or anything like that. So I got up to go to school the next day, and I had to go back to the back of the house and look. And mind you, this was before cameras, before any kid 14 years old, would have a camera. We had no cell phone cameras. The only camera that I remember in the house was a Kodak Polaroid, Instamatic type thing. And
That's
I wasn't allowed to touch it. But anyhow, I went in the backyard and I saw where something was standing, smashing down the snow. I saw something where Prince's fingers were touching the glass. And I looked at the gutter and I saw what looked like dirt, mud, wax, grease, fingerprints holding onto the gutter on both sides. Now, it didn't smash the gutter, it just crinkled the gutter, so it made that sound of collapsing aluminum. Again, no camera, nobody to tell about it because they would have thought I was nuts. And I remember seeing the prints on the gutter itself. So anyhow, it was a while after that. That's when my dad got to see something. And he worked at a place called B&W, Babcock and Wilcox Boilermakers in Barberton. So he would get up very early and he would get ready to go to work. He had his ritual where he would go start up his truck and warm it up and drink his coffee, read his newspaper, whatever, before he left for work. And he went out the door and we could hear this. And he walked, you could hear him crunching on the gravel of the driveway. And before he got to his truck, we heard a scream, an actual scream, a terrified scream. And it wasn't 10 seconds later, he was back in the house. He's sitting at the table, panting, white as a ghost. He was out of his mind. And what we think happened was he ran into one coming around the house as he was going to his truck. And I think they met face to face. Well, my old man was not really afraid of too much. He was a big dude, someone you wouldn't even think about messing with. He went that next morning or that next night when he got off work, because he did get the courage to go back to try to go to work. He went to a Kmart. And back then, the only game in town was a Kmart. There weren't anything else in this area. He went to Kmart and he bought one of those lantern batteries flashlights. The ones with the 2 dry cells. Because it was supposedly the best around in 1978 or whatever. And he forbid us to touch it. It sat on the nightstand by the door. And we weren't allowed to play with it. We weren't allowed to touch it. It better be there when he goes out to go to work. That was the next thing he grabbed after his lunch pail and thermos. He got that flashlight. And he never, I think until he retired, that flashlight had to be there. But he didn't like to talk about that too much. But
I imagine not.
Yeah, we know what it was because of the way he acted and what little he would tell us. But those were the 2 things that happened right there in that area. My aunt was living with us at one time, so that would be my cousin. Said she saw one in the backyard down over the hill. Let me think. There were other sightings by people that live like along the street that I lived on that borders the reservoir. There were other folks that said they saw one. They didn't know what it was. Again, Bigfoot wasn't very well known, but I think it was the Kenmore Grassman. I do believe that they travel the shallow waterways and the creeks. And I think they go from areas to areas. They live in clans, so there's more than one, but there's not a bunch of them. I would say a small family unit, but and then what else? Growing up, going to school, I had a person that lived behind us who said there was a squatch in the creek bed behind his house. They saw it from their porch. And so when I heard that, I'm like, hey, you're just through the woods from my house. You're not that far at all. I walk that way to school sometimes. Oh, yeah. It was a strange area growing up.
So,
Oh, there you go. There you
Colleen,
go.
is
Yeah.
that puppy? Is that your puppy?
No, that's our outdoor puppies. I'll give you a quick shot of them.
Yeah, bring the puppies on. They look like a
That's only
blotch.
3 of them. Wait till you've
They
got
look
10
like
or
a
wait till
blotch.
you see 10 or 12 of them. Yeah,
Oh Lord, that sounds like my kitty
but
cat.
they come out of the
Um,
woods, beer me, because like I said, I live right behind a river. So they come out of the woods and they come right up to us and they want to eat their corn. So, but I love them and I don't care. Neighbors don't mind either.
hey, fur babies are the best thing in the world. I'll tell you
Yeah,
what,
yeah, they're our
I'd go to
outdoor fur.
jail over mine. So, what
So
is your
anyway,
end with your research?
what's that?
What is
I
your
can't. I
end
didn't
game
hear that.
for research? Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
I'm gonna say yeah. I'm gonna say my end game is I need to know more. I need to be more educated and keep trying to find something. I'm at the point in my life after all this time of doing this, I don't care to change anyone's mind. All right. You either you will believe what I say or you don't. I'm not going to try to prove it. I used to do that. Probably drove a lot of people crazy, but I'm not doing that anymore. If someone wants to sit and talk to me, we'll talk. We'll talk about it. Share with them everything. I'll show them all my photographs. I don't care. Um, but you know, don't ridicule me like you other folks get ridiculed and things like that because it's not that big of a deal to me.
I
I
think
know they exist. I know that Bigfoots exist. The grass men exist. I've seen them. I've got photographs. You've seen the photographs. So
they
I
are
don't have
very
to prove
credible.
anything anymore.
I think the
But I'm
worst
always
thing,
listening to other folks. Yeah, I'm always listening to other people's.
I think one of the worst things that can be done when someone's
Go
trying
ahead.
to share their story is for someone to take a cheap shot at them because they don't believe or
Right.
want to
Right.
believe or
Exactly.
your narrative doesn't fit their
Hmm.
narrative. So I think that's a
Yeah.
big problem in the community. Now, I do admit there's hoaxers out there. And what's your
Oh,
opinion
you know
on
there is.
AI coming into the, do you think AI
Well,
or is going to help or hurt?
I think it's going to hurt. Here's the reason why. You're seeing pictures of things now done by AI that look absolutely 100% real. Now, I'm no computer person and I don't know how to even do that. I wouldn't even know how to hoax. All right. One of the things I do is make Bigfoot cutouts, right? And I like to paint mine up and make them look real. But I also sell them to people and they love them. But I would never go put one up and say, take a picture of it and say, "Oh, yep, there's a Squatch." I've seen so many of those on Facebook. It's not funny. I do take them and put them down on the riverbank around the bend when the college kids are in the summertime riding their canoes and their kayaks. So as they come around the bend, the only thing they're going to see is an 8-foot Squatch. But it's all in fun. It's not to hoax anyone. Anyone that looks at it twice is going to know that it's a cutout. I've had a I had a Kent cop a few years ago because I had mine a little too close to the road, and I witnessed a Kent cop come around the bend and his headlights hit it, and I heard the squeal of the tires, and you could see the officer reaching around in his car, probably reaching for his weapon, didn't know what to do until he shined his light on it, and then he knew right away that it was a cutout. But I'm like,
Colleen,
oops, I shouldn't have done that. I should move that
Colleen,
back 40 feet.
your life is hard enough, Colleen. Come on. Oh my goodness.
But
So
yeah, I wouldn't know how to hoax. That's the thing. I'm just not into the computerized stuff. But AI is
uh,
going to make so many believable pictures that it's going to dilute what's really out there. That's my thoughts.
I actually saw a video today where you could go on CapCut and make an avatar
Hmm.
and it would tell a story just like it was you. And I'm like, that is scary.
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
not in.
just there's people in it for the money making, and there's people in it
Mm,
to investigate, and they make a little money off of it, their work. And there's people in it that are just
yeah,
curious. Then you have people like me
right.
that just show up for the food. I mean, I
Yeah,
like food. So,
yeah. That's the best part of when we go squatch camping. I've got my camper. Other people have their campers. They have their tents. We set up our cookware. We make food. We don't make bologna sandwiches. We cook
your
food,
food's gourmet. Your
and
food
then
is
we have
gourmet. I
bucks.
seen that. I would squatch with you just to have the
I
food.
don't.
Yeah, stop.
Okay.
So, out of
When
all
I
of
make a
your place,
crawdad etouffee,
out,
yeah.
out of all of your places in Ohio, because you are an Ohio researcher, what is the hottest place you
Uh
can
huh.
go to get activity?
Well, I'd like to say Salt Fork. Salt Fork has been saturated on television, TV shows, and that for years. But myself, oh, by the way, a couple of weeks ago, you had my friend Jack Warren.
Yes,
He also has seen them. He and I both have seen them in the same place. Uh, so yeah, what he says, you can bank on it. Um,
I believe him.
he
I do believe.
I'll give you a little story. I'll give you a little story. We were camping,
Okay.
and each one of us had our coolers and things like that next to our campsite, which was bordering the woods at Salt Fork at the primitive campsite. Well, one investigator had his bratwurst stolen right out of his cooler. I
That was
had
me.
a brand new unopened. Yeah, I had a brand new unopened English muffins, and they were in my dry cooler, and I probably should have brought them inside. Didn't think about it, but something stole my English muffins, and Jack Warren, something stole his bag of peanuts. Okay, now you're thinking raccoons. I'm agreeing with you. You're thinking other things, but when a raccoon steals or would take an unwrapped bag of English muffins, I'm guaranteeing you that there's going to be English muffin crumbs, wrappers, and papers shredded all over the place. Because they're not going to say, "Oh, look what I got. I'm taking it back to my den." No, they're going to rip that thing to pieces. There wasn't any shells of peanuts. There was no crumbs and pieces of the muffins, and there was no sign of another guy's bratwursts. So I know they're selective thieves,
Was
um,
there beer
but
involved? Was there
and
any
they're
beer
gifters.
missing?
Well, I don't drink. Now, some people
No,
might
so
have a
no
little
beer
bit,
missing.
but no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I never heard of that yet. Um,
Oh, I
I know
spoke with
my
someone.
daughter.
Go ahead.
mm, my daughter was camping with her fiance a few years ago uh, at Mohican State Park, and there's a river that runs right through Mohican, and the campground is there. Well, she had same thing basically. Something came in and stole her steaks right out of the cooler. Left everything
Mm.
else but stole her steaks. And I don't think it was another camper. I don't think it was any homeless people, nothing like that. These things are kind of selective, so they do what they want.
Oh, yeah, I was speaking to someone. Actually, it was the show where the guy says, "Hey, what's up to Bigfoot?" It was Dean, and he actually left a beer out
Mm-hmm.
for him. Fast forward 6 months, he goes to his deer stand, and the beer's on the step of his deer stand. And I told him it was because he was trying to give
Ah,
alcohol to a minor. I mean, I'm like, come on now. But yeah, there was beer involved in that one. But I'll tell you a quick story about how raccoons are. I went to a call
mm-hmm.
one night where this guy had flipped his lid. His wife wouldn't let him have little Debbie snacks, so he
Uh-huh.
used to hide them in the building outside of his house. And he goes in there, and the raccoon is the sheetrock's halfway up the wall, and he was going off because this raccoon took his little Debbie's, and that's where he hid his little Debbie's. And he was talking about killing this raccoon because his
Yeah.
raccoon stole his little Debbie's. And on cue, that raccoon stuck its head up over the sheetrock, and you could see ears coming up, then it went up to his nose, then went up to his mouth, and he had little Debbie all over here. And he just looked at the man and just sunk back down in the wall. And I
uh,
don't know why I thought about that. But anyway,
well,
cute story.
they're very dexterous. They can do things like that with their hands. Uh, they're the one kind of animal that can. Groundhogs, they just dig. We have those too. Possums, possums pretty much use their hands for walking. You know how
I
their
call
fingers are all
possums
spread
swamp
apart?
kitties.
Yeah, swamp kitties, possums. There's a couple other
I call
names for them.
raccoons moon kitties. But that's
Ah,
just me because I have nothing to do with my life. So let me ask you
trash
this.
panda.
Out, the poor babies. Let me ask you this. Out of all of your research, what's the most abnormal behavior you could contribute to a Bigfoot?
Hmm. Okay. The time I was bluff charged, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but yes, I
No, I
have
can't.
been in the woods and was very, very dark. And I'm in the woods, and the only thing I have is my pistol and my cell phone. And I'm in a clearing, and I see there's a tree line in front of me. And from being there before, I know that there's, dense forest there. And I walked right up to the edge of that dense forest and just stood there and listened and listened. And within a couple minutes, I got the biggest scare of my life. And it popped up right in front of me and went, "Ugh." And you could
Oh
feel the
man,
vibrations of the sound. And again, I had my 45 in my hand, but I walked backwards. I didn't turn around. I didn't confront it. I just started walking backwards until I was at least 15, 20 foot away from it. Then I turned and kept going. I did not want to face it. I knew it wasn't a deer. We get deer chuffs all the time, and they can be loud depending on the size of the deer. But this was no deer. No, this went, "Ugh." And I thought, okay, you win.
you.
But I've
Yeah,
also
well,
heard of
that's
several people getting charged.
typical with the sounds. You hear them,
Yeah,
but you feel them.
yeah, that's right. You could feel it. It vibrated right through me. And another time I was in Pennsylvania with a group camping, because I do camp with a church group too. So we have lots of adults, we have lots of kids, and lots of food. So we went on hikes and learned and seen things. But anyway, long story short, after the hike, everybody came back to the campsite. We all started preparing our dinners. We had a wonderful time eating dinner. A lot of us were musicians. So you had several guitars, several fiddles. You had what else? Banjos. Oh yeah, banjos. Well, one of our members is an apt musician from the Kent area, and he had this book, and he calls it his gymnal, right? Because his name is Jim. But in this gymnal, he has all kinds of folk tunes, so you can sing along. So the musicians can play the notes and the music while everyone else sitting around the campfire can sing it. Well, some folks just look through it and then they say, okay, how about this song? Well, this song happened to be Warren Zevon's Werewolves of London. All right. So we agreed, we're all playing it and singing it, having fun. And where the part came on where it says, "Ow, Werewolves of London."
I
Well,
love
everybody had
that.
fun with that. Right. Everyone had fun with it. So the ows were quite loud and boisterous.
Uh-huh.
After the song ended, okay, everyone starts turning the book looking for the next song. I'm going to tell you this. It was probably 10 seconds or so after the last note. We heard the loudest bellowing scream coming from the hillside next to us. And it lasted a while. And you can tell that whatever did it, it had some lungs. It had air capacity. And we thought, could it be an elk? I mean, there's supposedly elk in that area, but it just didn't sound like an elk. This thing screamed like you wouldn't believe. So we all looked at one another thinking, what the heck did we just hear? What did we just feel in our chests, in our bodies? We can feel it. So everyone got their composure. We did more songs, and everybody, when they went to bed and all that. Well, when I got back to Ohio, I couldn't get it out of my mind. So I started researching right then and there, and I looked up uh, Ohio Bigfoot hunters, or what was it? A few other ones. And I saw this one where this guy has a recording of an Ohio howl, they called it. And a lot of folks have probably heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting at the computer and I play this, and this sound almost knocks me out of my chair because it's exactly what we heard in Pennsylvania. It was amazing. Who was the one that did that? Was that Moneymaker or someone else?
I'm not
It might
sure.
have been Matt Moneymaker that recorded that. But it's very loud, and I know folks know about it because they've heard it. It's been all over the place. And it shows a graph, from the sound levels going up and down and all that. So that's what it was. It started out, and then it went very loud and hung just like that, and then started coming back down. So it was strange.
Those howls will get to you. I do have a question. If anyone else has any questions, let's
Mm-hmm.
get them in. So Laura Quigley says, do you think that is their vibrations and how they appear and disappear? Talking about the howls.
I don't know. I truly don't know if they are able to disappear or appear. And there is a possibility, and I'm going to be honest, there's sometimes I lean towards that. But I still like to believe that there are flesh and blood mating, reproducing species. But I'm telling you, if it's found out, or if I find out that they do shapeshift or supernatural or anything like that, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to look into it any farther. Just
But you
because that plays with our logical thinking. That's all. Same thing with the alien connection. Are they alien connected? Again, if they are, I'm done.
but you can sit there and take a howl and that vibrates your whole body and you've been safe this far, so yeah.
Yeah, I've not had anything bad happen to me. Like I said, my bluff charge scared the bejesus out of me, but I was fine. Did not try to hurt me. But I think I got too close to the children, is what happened. And it doesn't like that. And we haven't had any bad things happen at Salt Fork at our group site. We've had sticks thrown out of the woods and hit the ladies' latrine. We've had trees get pushed down around there. I can tell you a little bit of story about that if we have time.
Sure.
We,
Yes, you'll show you.
yeah, Salt Fork has a lot of dead ends, a lot of country roads, like they call them township roads, 51, 52, 4, things like that. And you can drive down them, and they have cul-de-sacs where we like to go down there and sit and listen because it's pitch black. So we drive down this road. We come back in another, say, 2 hours, almost up, and there's a tree down over the road, a big tree. Now it's beautiful weather. It's warm. It's nighttime. There's no wind. There's no rain. Nothing. But there's a tree pushed down, and we're trapped. So it just so happened that some of the folks with us had a chainsaw. So they managed to get their chainsaw out and started cutting. It was probably, I'm going to say, around a 10-inch diameter tree. And I don't know what it took to knock it down, but it was pushed down over the road. Uh, it was the strangest thing I've ever seen. We've had a tree pushed down at the campsite right behind the bonfire. I mean, it literally came down in a crash. And we heard, Jack Warren knows about that one. And we've heard what they call samurai chatter. Okay. I'll be in the woods or next to the woods, and all of a sudden I'll hear what sounds like Asian children playing in the woods behind us. And I'm thinking, nope, there's no Asian kids here. There's no Oriental kids here. There's no kids here. It's all us old folks. But they're back behind us a few yards, and they're giggling, and they sound like Oriental children. And I think that's the kids. I really do. I think their curiosity is very high when they're young. And as they age, their curiosity, it starts to wane.
Laura Quigley
Um,
wants to know if the tree was dead or alive that you guys found that you had to cut up.
it was alive. It was
Alive.
alive.
So let me go back
I
to
remember
the
seeing the
chat.
branch.
Let me go
Say
back
what?
to the chatter. Let me go back to the
Okay.
chatter or the sound of the children laughing. I know when
Hmm.
I had
Sure.
my encounter, mine was with a dog man. Everybody knows that. But here's the funny thing. Over the years, the deputies would actually tell me about this place on, I think it was Macedonia Church Road, where there's a church
Uh-huh.
back there. And they would go there at night and they would just, like when the calls were slow and stuff, and it would totally freak, they would freak themselves out. That's why they would do it, just to freak
Yeah.
themselves out. And bad deputies. But they would hear kids giggling in the woods, and the closer they would get,
Hmm.
it would disappear. And I always wondered if
Okay.
the two had some kind of connections, or if that was just a, because it's right there on the, it's near a major river and everything else. So, but yeah, I always wondered about that, if there was a connection.
Oh, I think there is. And like I said, they are kind of curious. Oh, okay. Let me back up. Let me back up 30, 28, 29 years. All right. I forgot about
Oh,
this one. When I said to everybody, there's waterways and then there's creeks and streams all around where I used to live. Y'all remember that Jody Cook picture of George Clapperson and him finding that igloo in Akron? That big stick igloo that's all woven together. You've probably all seen pictures of it. Victoria, you might even have it. I think
I
we
do,
talked
but
about that.
I can't walk and chew gum, so if you expect me to
Yeah,
attach pictures of StreamYard,
that's fine.
you're very hopeful of me.
But anyway, it yeah, it was this big stick igloo found in Akron, and again, we'll cross reference this with the reservoir. We'll cross reference it with the digging in the cemetery thing. It's only a couple miles from there, both places. These many reports of the Kenmore grass men showing up in that swampy area. What that swampy area was is actually what they call a brown field. Okay, it used to be industry. Industry's gone. They left a lot of stuff that they shouldn't have left, so it's not good for anything. But it's lots of tall grasses, and that's where this thing was found. Now I'm going to
Can you
back up
see
a little
that?
bit more. My
I don't know.
what's that?
No, that sucks. Never mind. I was trying to show the
Yeah,
picture.
that's okay. Um, yeah, you can share them with whoever wants to. But 29 years ago is when I got out of the Army. I was home and we had a death in the family. And my aunt lived in Kenmore. And I was supposed to go pick her up one early morning so we could get on the road to go to Southern Ohio. So I'm on my way up State Route 93, right north of the Portage Lakes. I come to a red light. There's a highway overpass. I come to this red light. Now, you can believe this if you want. I look and up there to my left because I'm headed north, and there's a figure crouched underneath the bridge where the concrete, comes down at a 45-degree angle. And it saw me, and it came to its feet and kind of came down the slope. And I saw it. I got a good look at it. It looked like a naked teenager with hair. And when I say hair, it had hair from head to toe, literally. The hair came down the arms, came down the tops of the hands, to the knuckles. The hair came down to the feet, the ankles. I saw his pork chops and everything about him. You could look through the hair and see the body. That's what astounded me. Now, again, I didn't know these things were around. So I'm looking at it and it's looking at me. So it runs behind one of those pillars, that holds up the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaned to look at me. It leaned out to the left and I looked at it, and then it leaned back to the right and then came out the right side, and it did this like 3 times. You ever heard the term chiclet's teeth? Okay, it had big flat teeth. It had no fangs, it had no aggression. I thought it was a teenager, but it wasn't a normal teenager. We made eye contact. I looked at it, it looked at me, and it grinned. It gave me the most crap eating grin that you would ever could imagine. It was so sheepish, and it wrapped its arms around one of those pillars. Its hands almost touched, so it had very, very long arms, but they didn't touch. They were close. And I got to see its waxy hands and its fingernails and its toenails, and I got to see its face, and it did not have any aggression towards me whatsoever. It was curious. It was sheepish. It was just odd. So we'll go forward a little bit. Back in the, I don't know, late 80s, maybe early 90s. If you all remember the commercials for the Geico cavemen.
Mm-hmm.
First time I watched that commercial, I almost died. I was like, that looks just like it. I can't believe it. It has the same shape. It has the sideburns, the pork chops, everything. And it's like, that is exactly what I saw. Except this thing's wearing clothes on TV, but it's like, my God, it looks identical to it. Where did they ever come up with this? So,
From seeing it
stranger
under a
things,
bridge.
right?
Yeah.
But
Wow. So we have been going
yeah,
on a
I'm
minute.
a
And oh, by the
nosy,
way,
but
that
like the thinker.
do what? We have a bit of a
It was
delay
sitting there kind of
between.
like the thinker.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you said was sitting there like the thinker, and I'm just getting this mental picture. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you said,
it was kind of like on its.
wow. Just so you know, Doug Waller is coming on the show. I think it's next week.
Oh, you got to
Just
let
let
me
you
know.
know.
He's a very good friend of mine.
Yes, yes. I think he had to watch the show a little while to see if I was his cup of tea. And you know what? That's okay because, you are who you associate with. So, and when he agreed to
Uh-huh.
do it, I was very honored. I was very honored.
Okay, good.
Um, so is
Doug
there
is like
anything
our
else you would?
fearless leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for that. Is there anything
Yeah.
else you would like to share with us or anything?
Honestly, Victoria, if I thought more, I could probably remember a few more
Uh,
things. There's a lot of stuff up here. I don't really have things written down, but maybe Doug will share his books with you, and you'll see he's got 2 of my
yeah.
stories in. Oh yeah, that's another thing too. I forgot. At Salt Fork, being at the other primitive campground known as Bigfoot Ridge, uh, on my 50th birthday. Now, this was 10 years ago. I went camping with other investigators and my daughters, and I brought enough stuff to cook for everybody. And I remember it well. It was a very hot May 21st, and it was humid. Well, I just cooked breakfast for everyone, and I mean breakfast. I did eggs, bacon, ham, grits, oatmeal, pancakes, coffee, cocoa.
That's
We did
Well,
everything,
my thighs are
and
big because I love food.
I do. So anyhow, after breakfast and everybody was fed, I cleared off the kitchen area, but I had a lot of scraps left. So I wasn't really thinking clear, and I walked over to the woods and I dumped them in the woods, thinking, okay, great, raccoons, possums, they're going to love it. But it was already 90 some degrees and it was very humid, so it was sticky. And I thought, all right, I'm going to go take a shower at the shower house. I left my phone, I left my camera, everything. I went by myself. My daughters were laying down again. And I drive down this little road that people are very familiar with if they know Salt Fork. And there's a road that comes up from one of the lakes. And there are not construction, but parked vehicles and that come up the hill sometime. Well, there's a very sharp turn. So I stopped and looked down the hill, even though it's not a stop sign. I just did. I looked down the hill and I saw something in the road, which I had no clue what was at first. And then it hit me. You're looking at a little girl. There's a little girl Squatch, and she's there, and I see her from the side. I watched her take 3 steps from the road and drop down a ravine that goes up the backside of where I was camping on primitive site number 1. She was small, and she was pretty, if that makes sense. She actually was pretty looking. She had white, I called it a reverse raccoon around her face. Instead of being dark around her eyes, it was light. And the rest of her face was salt and pepper with pink lips, pink ears. She did have a beard. She did have sideburns. And she was kind of mottled white. And you could literally also see her. You looked right through her and saw her body. But I only got to see a few seconds. I only saw like 3 steps. And she went down an embankment that I went to look at and said, nope, I'd break my neck. And that was before my injury. You know, I couldn't do it. For me to get down in there, I would have had to grab a hold of every tree branch and lower myself down slowly. But this thing just went right down it like a deer. And I know to this day that she was very fascinated by what I was cooking. I had a lot of smells, a lot of scents in the woods, and it drew her in because they don't live very far from where the campsites are. That's why the state called it Bigfoot Ridge for a reason. It's not a joke. There's been hundreds of people that's seen them back in there. But it was just amazing. And I didn't have a camera. I didn't have any way of proving it. I'm just telling my friends about it when I come back from the shower. And we went down to look at it. Well, it just so happens, to close out here, there was what I call a pay-to-play event going on. There were certain Ohio Squatchers that were collecting money for people to go and experience a Bigfoot hunt, right? So they're all camping up the road from where we were camping. And once they got word of it, they were all in their trucks and cars, and they were all whooping it up and speeding down the roads. They were going looking. I found out later they were kind of mad because of what I saw, and they didn't see, and they had to pay for it. But you just never know when you're going to see them. The only thing I can tell people is to keep your eyes open. Always think about where they might be. Think about, it's kind of like when you drive, right? You're looking for deer. I know I am. There's millions of them up here. I look for deer. I was a truck driver, almost 30 years of it. I never hit a deer, but I see them before they come out in the road. But you got to constantly be looking. And, you look down the railroad tracks, you look down the streams, you look in the fields, just like you would look for deer. And you just never know what you might see. It's not like I'm some magical person that has this ability to see these things. No, I'm a trained observer, so I look at stuff. And when I do see stuff, I sort out what I'm seeing. And anyone can do it too. They just have to look.
You can go out for years and years between sightings and experiences. And I think that's one thing that people don't realize. You know what's cool about that story, seeing that little girl Squatch with the beard and the sideburns? I am glad that there's another female out there that can grow sideburns in the beard just like me. And I just think that's cool. Now I don't feel so I
Yeah.
don't feel so bad when I have to go
Yeah.
get my
I mean,
face waxed. I think that's just
she
awesome.
wasn't,
Thank you.
yeah, she wasn't big. I'm going to estimate her height 5.5 feet. I'm going to estimate her weight maybe 150 pounds, if that. She just wasn't big, huge, and bulky, but she certainly wasn't some little girl that got lost from a campsite. Oh no, she was what she was, and she was pretty, really pretty. I saw her from about 50 yards, I would think, from the road, and it's just a little tiny blacktop road, so you can barely get two vehicles between each other.
Did she have
But
like the
yeah,
comb
three
head?
steps, she was down the ravine and gone.
Did she have like the comb head?
What's
Because I
that?
know some of them have the. Did she have the comb head? I know some of them has the
At, at,
comb head.
I don't recall seeing that. I really don't. I just remember the hair, and I remember her arms moving and her legs moving. And in Doug's book, the way I describe it, think back when you were younger and you remember Porter Wagner on Hee Haw. Remember how
Yeah.
Porter Wagner always wore those fringed jackets? Think of that like her arm hair. It hung down
No.
in fringes, and it was wispy. You know, it wasn't coarse, it wasn't thick, but she just had a prettiness to her. I'll never forget it.
Wow. That's incredible. And you know what? I do miss it. I miss Hee Haw. I miss that. I miss that
Me too.
show. I'm gonna go look it up now. I'm a my poor husband's
Yeah.
gonna have to go to sleep listening to Hee Haw in the background now. Sorry in advance, Johnny, but you can
Well,
blame it on
you think
Colleen.
about it, it's a lot like Griffith. You know, yeah,
I think
it's a
that
lot
is
like the Andy Griffith Show and several others. It's non-violent. Nobody
yeah.
got killed. There was no drugs. Uh, there was no crap. It was wholesome entertainment for people. And
Yeah.
I'm
Opie,
part Cajun. I love Cajun music. I love fiddle music and bluegrass and things like that.
yeah, I love
You know,
bluegrass.
back when I was a kid, I didn't think much about it. My dad enjoyed it, but yeah, I still listen to it every so often on YouTube when I dig it up.
Yeah, you never seen Opie buck up at Andy either, did you?
No, 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 he was very, but like I said, that's good. What I consider wholesome entertainment. Okay, that's it's well worth watching. There's people today, even my daughters would say, "Oh God, it's boring. I don't like that. Ugh, I want to watch MTV. I want to watch Snooki, whatever."
They still have
No,
MTV
I
out there?
don't.
Wow. So
I
Colleen,
believe so, and other stations too.
Hee
But she
Haw and
likes,
David
they.
Duke, the Duke
Oh yeah, I
boys,
grew up with the Dukes, right?
Boss
Wholesome
Hog.
entertainment, goofy, over the top, but fun. No one got hurt. You know,
Them
it's just the
Duke
way it was.
boys were crazy. They're a little bit rowdy, weren't they? So,
Oh, yeah.
so Colleen, at the end of the shows, I always give a person a few moments to do a tribute. You know who you want to do your tribute to?
I think I'll attribute it to my dad, because he kind of started this whole thing with me when he had his sighting, and even though he was secretive and quiet and didn't want to talk too much about it, I know what he went through. I can imagine the fear that he felt, because you could hear him scream, and my dad never screamed at anything unless us. But that's all.
Well, I really enjoyed having you on. I'm glad this time we decided to go
Mhm.
live. And
Okay, good. I enjoyed
you're
it too.
always you're always got a seat on the show, lady. You come back anytime you
Okay,
want
good.
to.
Very good.
All
Yep, I
right, you be
definitely want to
safe
see
out
her.
there.
Okay, thanks, Victoria. We'll see you later.
Bye bye.
Bye.